It's the Friday Cocktail, presented by Anna Glavinsky.
If you've ever get that quiet, or sometimes not even so quiet, feeling that you are meant for something bigger, maybe feel like you've got more to give, more to become, you feel like you want to make an impact in this life, but you're not really sure how to. It's just an internal feeling. Well, my guest who's just joining me on the line, she works with women who exactly feel that pull. Mikaela Jackson is a career and life coach and targets specifically ambitious, purpose-driven women. And she's written a new book, and it's all about claiming your power. That's the subtitle there. And really how you can harness that. You might have potential inside you, but where is it going to go? How do you turn that into action? Well, I'm not the one here to tell you. Mikaela is. Hello, how are you doing?
Hey Anna, lovely to meet you. It's so nice to be on the show.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us. What's your background into all of this in the first place? How did it become your purpose, I suppose?
Yeah, to cut a long story short, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, and I spent my 20s trying to figure it out. And, I had some great life experiences. I went to university, loved it, graduated, thought the world's my oyster, which it was, but it was actually the 2008 financial crash and jobs weren't too good at that point. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do, as a career. And so I moved back to Aberystwyth in Wales, where I'm from, and I thought, actually, I don't want to be here. And that's when I went traveling by myself around Southeast Asia, Australia, and ended up, setting up my life there for a few years. Had a great time, did a couple of different jobs, and then realized actually I wanted to move back to the UK, and was still trying to figure out what lit me up, what gave me that sense of fulfillment. And really when I moved to London, I hit a bit of a low point. I was in a job, living situation, a relationship I wasn't happy in. And I thought, I need to make some positive changes. I don't feel like my best version. Nobody can do this for me. And that's when I discovered coaching. And that's when I went on my own personal development journey and decided to become a coach, basically, to invest in a coaching diploma. And it was that became the catalyst for hugely positive change in my life. And so I now help other women to connect with what their best version is and to be their most, to realize their potential and to connect with their sense of purpose. That's how it's come to be.
Oh, fantastic. And before we go into some more of those, the theories and the tips that you can apply and help people with, still talking about you and your story. You mentioned a couple of things there. You weren't happy in your job. You're in London after you'd been in Australia in a relationship that you didn't feel happy in. Would you advise people just to, if they're feeling in that situation, get rid of everything at once, just make a big clean start and completely reinvent themselves from scratch? And is that what you did?
You know what? That humans don't like to get rid of things. We don't like to lose things. And so, no, I wouldn't advise that. But if you're feeling that way, and your situation is starting to feel like a personal injustice, if it doesn't feel good for you, if the job doesn't feel like, you're not being valued, or you're not realizing your potential, or it doesn't feel aligned in any way, or the relationship doesn't feel good, an intervention is required. And typically that's when women come to me, when they realize, actually, even when my life isn't looking good on paper, or is looking good on paper, if I'm not feeling it, I need to do something about it. And so I would say, create that intervention for yourself and begin to do the inner work of, okay, well, if this doesn't feel right, then what are the possibilities and opportunities available to me? What does a life beyond this current status quo or this comfort zone, because often we're in one, right, when we've been doing something for a while, even if it's uncomfortable, it's still kind of a comfort zone because it's familiar. What could that look like for me? And often people feel a bit stuck in what their current situation is. And that's typically why they might seek a coach out, because they're like, actually, I know this doesn't feel good, but I don't really know what else is available to me or how to get there or take the action, or I need the accountability to make that my new reality. So no, don't burn it all down. Sorry, I was going to do that. But take the steps. Yeah.
Yeah, sort of step by step. And would you say that you work more with or equally with both women who already sort of have it looking good on paper, you know, ambitious women who perhaps don't feel like something inside is sitting right? Or is it more with women who are a bit more stuck? You know, they know they're stuck. A bit like what you were saying for your own personal story. You were at a low point. You knew that. Which is your area?
I think it can be both of those things, right? Because I think you could look at some of you might have friends that you know or people that you think, wow, they sound like they've got a great job. Everything's looking really good for them. But then actually their reality might not feel that way. And so they feel stuck in what they know. They might feel trapped in their job because they earn incredibly well. They work for a great organization, what's perceived to be, but it doesn't feel great for them. It doesn't feel like their version of success perhaps anymore. Perhaps it feels emptier or not aligned as it once did. So yeah, I would say it can totally be both. And often it's funny, I ask a lot of the women that start working with me, where would you currently rate your life satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 10? And a lot of them will say like 7, which you could say is pretty high, right? But it's because they think, well, actually, I'm grateful for so much in my life, but I'm recognizing there are certain aspects that I want to make positive changes in, basically.
Yeah. And do you have to work differently if you're working with someone who's feeling stuck and scared to take another step versus someone who's got that great job, who's gotten the massive paycheck, but they're feeling maybe burnt out or something's missing? How do you identify the differences? Yeah,
it's interesting because it's funny. It's often common challenges, right, that we face. And what age, stage, industry, background. I mean, some people do have more clarity on the path that they want to be on, and some of them want to kind of work on their confidence or their leadership or navigating conversation. So there is that side of things. There might be some women that want to start or take a business to the next level, but they feel like they have no idea how to do that, you know, but they have this like kind of longing to do it. Or it might be, typically I'd say the sweet spot for me is women in their 30s and 40s. So they've had quite a bit of life experience. So they're starting to know themselves more, but they're perhaps doubting themselves. They're disconnected from their sense of self, you know, like their story, what's led them there, because the clues to their purpose and their fulfillment are already there. They've just kind of disconnected from those things and perhaps aren't trusting themselves. But those common challenges of confidence and connection to self and recognizing what their own version of success is and what their sense of purpose is kind of go across for everyone, I'd say, you know, that I work with.
And you say that people defining their own version of success, how does that align with the idea of, you know, women having it all, wanting it all, being able to get it all? Because I know that you talk about that.
Yeah, you know, that's challenging, isn't it? Because in this day and age, we kind of think, well, we kind of can have it all, but actually it's not necessarily easy to have it all or do it all well, right? And so I'm often speaking to women about, well, you know, we have a lot of external kind of measures of success or perception, don't we? That comes with kind of status, title, money, you know, expertise, whatever the thing is. But actually, if we have those things or achieve those things and they aren't feeling meaningful, then really we're not living our version of success. And so often, you know, I work with a lot of mums. I am one myself. You know, I've got 2 young children, and we have shifting priorities, whether it be, you know, flexibility to work around our children, but we want to kind of work differently. We still want to do meaningful and fulfilling work. We still want to realize our potential and be purposeful, but it needs to work around our other life priorities as well. Yeah.
And you also talk about, you know, people feeling self-doubt, guilt, wanting to improve their confidence. How much work do people have to do on the inside, but perhaps end up staying exactly where they are, just feeling differently about it, versus changing their external world?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, it's all about the inner work, isn't it? You know, because we can be having days or weeks where we're feeling great about our life, and then there might be other weeks where things don't feel so good. And, you know, there can be all sorts of explanations for that. But ultimately, it's hugely about, the inner work, the connection to self. And those foundations, that's really what the power section of this book is about. Because, yeah, we could be saying, okay, well, I'm not good at my job. I'm not good enough. I'm not capable, or all of these things. And then when we recognize our strengths and why we're there and what people come to us for, and if we kind of reframe that narrative to, I am capable, people have come to me for my expertise, we can feel quite differently about our situation, actually quite quickly. It's hugely about our narratives, what we think, what we say, what we do is self-fulfilling, so I would say it is a combination. It is perhaps often things don't change, but people are feeling better about them. But I mean, I do typically work with women that are going through some kind of transition and typically want to change something, or like start a business, change jobs. But often, things like confidence and leadership aren't changing the situation. It's just changing how they're feeling, their narratives and their approach to it. So it is a mixture.
Absolutely. Now, everybody loves a case study. Are you able, no names or anything like that, but are you able to tell, one of the most either inspiring or relatable stories about any of the women that you've worked with who have gone from here to here and how they got there?
Yeah, gosh, I'm trying to think. I've got so many. I'm just trying to think which one to kind of it would be most relevant. I mean, so I had a lady come to me. When she came to me, she was working in a job that she was feeling like really a big job in the NHS basically. But she wasn't feeling like she wanted to be there anymore. And she felt like she wanted to leave it and she wanted to start her own business. So when she came to me, we did that and she started her own business. But then something changed in her organization, which was the leadership, and there was more opportunity for her. And she decided to really commit to her leadership journey and navigated that differently and got, promotion, pay rise, and developed in those ways. And then then another twist and turn happened because we've been working together for years, which is like, actually, I think now it's my time. I want to explore working not in the NHS anymore, but still within a leadership role. And she took her business in a different way, but has still been kind of like working for herself more and more. Thought she wanted a CEO position, was going for that. And now she's realizing, actually, I've got a place by the sea. I want more freedom and flexibility. I don't want to do more. I want to do less, but with more intention that feels meaningful and fulfilling to me. And that's just one example I think of, because I think about the twists and turns of life, because often when I'm working with women, life is happening. We can't predict at the beginning of a program what might happen. We can kind of think, okay, that's where we want to go. But sometimes things are happening that we can't predict, or we're evolving and becoming all the time, and our priorities are shifting as we're experiencing them. So you have to allow for a bit of that when you're a career and a life coach, because
I love that story as well, because, working for the NHS, that is one of the biggest organisations out there. It's mostly government controlled, so it's very structured. To then perhaps, starting your own business, that could be a terrifying leap. Now, you speak about fear. How often does fear hold people back? How often is fear warranted? Because we live in uncertain times, jumping from an organisation to, I don't know, becoming a pastry chef or something. It's legitimately terrifying. It's fair.
Yeah, enormously fear comes into it. But often we can kind of start to remove those fears somewhat, or kind of whittle them down, thinking of the best expression here. But say somebody comes to me and they're like, okay, this is what I currently know, but it doesn't feel good, but I don't know what else it is that I want to do, or how to make that happen, or I've got a really well-paid job, or I get maternity leave here, or, all of these things that we kind of think about or consider as women. Our security, we need some stability and security, don't we, in order to kind of function and have that foundation, so we're not operating from a place of anxiety or worry. So that's totally warranted, that we wouldn't want to like rock our boat unnecessarily. But often it's the fear of the unknown. So if we get clear on what it is that we actually want and why we want it, and why that would be good for us, or a more meaningful path for us for our loved ones, whatever the case may be, and it feels connected to our motivations, our sense of why, then we start to overcome those fears because we're getting clear on what it is that we want, why it's important to us, and then how we can take the steps to get there. And to that question you asked me previously, do you just burn the house down in a way and just no, that doesn't work for most humans, apart from maybe some risk takers that are prepared to do that. Most of us will not want to operate in that way at all. So, but I do find in a relatively short number of sessions, when you help people, when you hold the space for them to get that clarity and connect to what it is that they want, it becomes, you start to kind of take away those fears because the other thing becomes more exciting, more of a priority. And the thing that doesn't feel good feels more and more like a personal injustice that you just can't stay in. You can't do that to yourself anymore. You have to take the steps forward to make the change because it's going to be better for you ultimately.
So it's almost easier to discard it. Now, anyway, you say that your book is a journey. What do you mean by that? And how do you hope that people will work with your book?
Yeah, so the book, it's basically a philosophy of the journey that I've kind of been taking, or my philosophy, the journey I've been taking my clients on for the past 10 years, and they can access it at different points. And I think, and not to blow my trumpet, but I think the beauty of it is that actually I could have read this book 15 years ago before I started my journey of coaching when I was on that, in that low point to now, because it goes from themes of, the things that I was talking about in the power section around kind of narratives. Often we need those little kind of reminders, those mindset reminders, right? We can have good phases where we're feeling positive, and then we go through phases where we perhaps feel a bit more like a victim, or the world isn't on our side, or that our confidence is knocked and we don't have a positive self-narrative. So there's the foundation piece of prioritizing yourself and the narratives and the habits and all that kind of thing. But then also when you have that, you need those foundations in order to be your best version. You need that foundation to go on and to be able to achieve your goals and realize, your potential, be, to create your version of success. And then when you do that, you kind of get to the point where, okay, if I'm achieving my goals and these things for myself, often I see the switch to wanting to kind of serve others and make a difference. Most of the women that come to me, they actually really want to help people and make a difference. I think that's quite inbuilt in a lot of us, right? And so it goes on to themes like purpose, higher purpose, influence, impact, leadership, all of these types of things. So you can be a leader and need to work on your kind of sense of self and narratives, because you might not be talking about yourself to yourself very nicely, but you also can have those aspirations, those big goals, and want to serve the greater good when you are, in that power section too. So it's kind of like taking people, on that journey to what feels like there's something bigger, whatever that might be at that stage.
Well, it sounds really helpful, potentially even life-changing for some people. So if you do want to get your hands on it, you can pop it into Google. You'll find it on Amazon. You can find it on the Talk Radio Europe bookshop as well. It's called You Are Meant for Something Bigger, and it's by Mikaela Jackson, who we've had the pleasure of talking with this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.